Hello, I am the Mobius strip and I am forever. I want to live in a functional, high-trust society and I want you to as well. Today we'll be talking about the income and wealth inequality, the left, and how inequality is far more likely to relate to the age of the group you're looking at than race. And the left is wrong in their accusations that it's all about race and racism. Before we get started with today's video, don't forget to like the video, don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment letting me know whether you agree or disagree. I would like to cooperate with you. First, a few definitions. Game theory is when an agent or a human being with free will or agency chooses one of three options: open themselves, lower their defenses for cooperations with others, remain guarded so they cannot cooperate with others but they cannot be attacked, and finally attack. They've let their guard down so they can be attacked as well, and they're doing harm to others. This is what we want to avoid. Alright. The American left wing often and repeatedly say that inequality is a huge problem, and that inequality is primarily due to race. Blacks are poor, it's the white people's fault. They often, especially when I was in college, kind of ignore every other group. They just break it down to these two groups, even though there's obviously more options. To add to this, if anyone were to say there could be another reason, or even say that it could be racism and another reason, it's not simply only racism, this person will be called racist by the left-wing person. They will often be blamed for the current situation of poor black people. And during the woke era of roughly 2015 to 2024, that time period could be debated, but it's roughly that time period, people who made this mistake often risked their jobs and livelihood. There are many issues with this claim. There is, of course, the famous Ben Shapiro clip. I'll play it now. 1 second.
Of things that I wanted to share with you. According to Pew Research, the net worth of white families in 2013 was $141,000. For black families, it was $11,000.
These numbers being
even
said
less than the $19,000 it was in 2007.
The numbers aren't important.
According to economist Edward Wolf of the University of New York, excluding vehicles and other durables, the median black family worth is just $1,700, while 40% of black families have zero or negative wealth. White family worth, in terms of financial worth, is 69 times more than that of black families. Given this disparity, how can you argue that racism is not a driving factor in income inequality?
Because it has nothing to do with race and everything to do with culture. And when you have a culture that doesn't, you know what? Explain to me. You explain to me why black kids aren't graduating high school. Explain that one to me. Explain to me why black kids are shooting each other in rates significantly higher than whites are shooting each other. Explain to me why 13% of the population is responsible for 50% of the murder. Explain to me why the number of black kids in prison, not for innocent reasons, not for walking down the street and getting pulled into a prison, is so high. Explain, if it has nothing to do with culture, explain to me why the single motherhood rate in the black community jumped from 20% to 70% in the same course of time that the civil rights movement has made such tremendous strides. Is
Alright, so I think
America more racist now than it was in 1960? And if it is, please explain to me how that happened.
So that was obviously a famous Ben Shapiro clip. It's over 10 years old. I will address Ben and recent changes with the American right, Gen Z, and Israel in a future video. That's not for today, but he is correct on this issue. America's not more racist in the woke era than it was in the 1960s. Inequality is not just blacks and whites for the first, but there are more groups in America than just these two. And there's more going on here. Of course, the point that I'm going to make as the Mobius strip is a benign one, which is that age is the factor. But that video has shown that left-wingers do say this, and right-wingers tend to have an answer for this. Alright, so we'll move on to the next slide. Here is the U.S. median household income by race and ethnicity. I've got the races here, I've got the amount of income here, and if you look, white people, which left-wingers always say are the privileged and wealthiest, are in fact the third wealthiest group, which is already kind of a point against the whole, whites are the wealthiest and have privilege argument. So white people are sitting at 90, Hispanic people are just above 60, black folks are in the 50 range, Asian Americans are around 110, and Jewish Americans are at 160, with American Indians at 50,000. This non-copyright music is louder than I was hoping. One sec. All right. And then we have U.S. median household income. I made this black because I didn't want to confuse the two. Again, we're using the Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finance's relatively recent data. For whatever reason, Jewish people make more money than everyone else, but Asian people have the most net worth, but everything else remains in the same trend, right? And again, white Americans are not the wealthiest, and people who say it are just wrong, but here's what the data looks like. So, as you can see, the other issue of the chart that left-wingers don't address is if white people are just racist and every other group is a victim of this Nazi, KKK, race-based inequality, then why are Asians so successful? Why are Jewish people, that Nazis of course hate, so successful? How is that possible if the evil Nazis run the place? It's just, it really is ridiculous, this claim that left-wingers make. It is really weird if the racists run everything. So, but there is something else that needs to be addressed. My claim that race is actually not the most accurate way to measure wealth and income inequality, but it's in fact age that's the biggest difference. I'll start off by referencing my own life. I'm actually afraid of being doxxed, so I'm going to be a little vague, but since my career is relatively normal, it would be difficult to find me. I mean, I live in the Midwest and I have a really normal career, but so this is Mobius when I was 14 years old and I had a job making minimum wage. I was 14, I had zero work experience, I owned zero assets, I had to be driven to work, I had no retirement or 401k account, I did not own a home. Fast forward to when I was 23, I was almost a full year out of college, I was making around 50k as a staff accountant. I had only one major asset, which was a car. I owned a computer and a cell phone. That is basically all I owned. I had less than a year of experience. I had less than a year of a 401k retirement balance. My work experience was a couple accounting internships and a minimum wage summer job in high school and junior high. And so that's when I'm 23. And now that I'm in my early 30s, I'm at a very low 100k annual. With my accounting job. My wife and I own a modest home with 20% equity in the home. We both own a car. We have around 100k combined in our retirement accounts, and I have a modest savings for emergencies and investments. This is not because I oppressed minorities or stole it from black people, which is actually something that leftists have said to me. It is because having 10 years of accounting experience makes me more competitive in the workplace. And when a previous job, and I've done this, did not give me a promotion because the role of the promotion was filled by someone else who was not leaving that job anytime soon, I simply applied for different jobs, and it was a lot of work. I would go to work, do a 10-hour day, and then I'd come home and spend another 3 hours an evening talking to recruiting companies and applying to jobs because if you don't get a promotion at your current company in the current job market, you change jobs to get a promotion. And because I am worth more in the job market now in my 30s than I was when I was 23, than I was when I was 14, the job market rewarded that with a new job, with a promotion, with a pay raise. I have more in my 401k because I've been putting money into it. I could not possibly have this much in my 401k when I was 14. My investment, and this can be scaled up. I expect in 10 more years, more of my home will be paid off. I'll have more money in my retirement account. I should have higher pay. My investments should be worth more than they are today. This is because I will be older. I'll have years of experience and money making behind me. I think most people just intrinsically know this, but for some reason in the discussion of wealth inequality, age is very rarely talked about. When I was young, I had less. Now that I'm older, I have more. I can predict when I'm older, I'll have even more. I could predict this in the past when I was a college student. This is one of the things that motivated me to have a career-focused degree in accounting. This seems very obvious to me, but it is not obvious to everyone. So now we're going to break down race and age. And if you actually see, the older your race is, on average, in America, there's a correlation with the money you have. Does this make sense? Are you seeing what I'm pointing out? As you can see, black Americans are significantly younger. than white and Jewish Americans. We'll address the Asian question in a minute here. These are more years to gain experience to make you more valuable in the workplace. These are more years to pay off your home, more years to add to your 401k, more years to make investments, more years of just being paid, you know? If you have 10 years of experience making 70k a year, you have more money than someone with 3 years of experience making 100k a year. Age matters a great deal when it comes to wealth and income. What this chart clearly is showing is that Asian Americans are actually fairly young compared to the other two wealthy groups. And the more data I see, the more it just seems like, well, I don't know if white people are the richest people. It looks like it's Asian people. Looks like left-wingers are full of crap, and white people aren't as successful as everyone says they are. Or I shouldn't say everyone, as left-wingers say they are. We are, excuse me, I'm a white guy. This flies in the face of the white racist run the place narrative. Remember, this is the next time someone claims that white Americans are all privileged. Yeah. So we're going to dive into the inequality question directly. I'm not the first one to point out, left-wingers are much more likely to discuss inequality than poverty in the modern discourse. This is because most people living in Western countries are not living in abject poverty, like the vast majority of people are not, but instead have enough to eat and a place to sleep. But they have less than someone who is more successful than them. Now, there's a real argument for helping those in poverty, right? When you see a homeless person, especially one who is not a drug addict but is just mentally ill, I wouldn't be that upset about reopening the insane asylums and putting them in there instead of on the streets, right? But I do not care that on average a 55-year-old has more wealth and income than me right now in my early 30s. I don't care. And I expect to have more wealth and income in my 50s than now. Not only do I expect it, but I'm actively working for it. I'm making sacrifices right now in order to make that happen. I'm working an average of 50 hours a week. I'm contributing to my 401k instead of spending all my money on fun. I keep my home in good condition so that its value is not lost, and so on. Left-wing people often get quite angry when I say this to them. Many are younger, many are in college or are college-aged, and like me, when I was that age, I was poor. This blind envy is difficult to argue with. But when I say poor in college or poor in their teens and early 20s, I don't mean they don't eat. I mean they have a used car or take the bus, and their fancy winter jacket was probably a Christmas present, but they're not like homeless. That's not what I'm talking about, right? But these folks, they have envy of those who are wealthier than them, and there is clearly a correlation between wealth and age. And then here's the ages right next to each of them, right? And you can see pretty big differences, right? And again, Asian pretty young and pretty successful, and the Jewish Americans are the oldest of the group, and they make the most money. This just makes sense. They have more experience. And then you have here, white folks are on average 43, Hispanics 31. That's a really big age difference. Like when you adjust for age, again, that's a big age difference. Asian people pretty young, Native Americans very young, Jewish people old, right? So, game theory in regards to career. So let's look at it with game theory. Let's say that Agent 1 here is your average 18 to 22-year-old who is done with high school and is deciding what to do with their career in early adulthood. Agent 2 is a loosely defined, quote, society. Agent 2, again, to reference Ben, he was a good orator in the 2015s. I know he's going through a lot right now. We're all a little upset, but there's this quick little chat that he would always give.
Emailed me the other day, and she said, you have your 3 rules, right? No, don't have babies before marriage, and finish high school, and then get a job.
Right, so those are basic rules if you follow, right? If you follow those rules, Agent 2, society, will cooperate with you, is a good way of thinking about it. I personally would add that choosing a career and working, and choosing it, stick to it, and work to perfect your career could be a nice 4th thing. You don't need to go to college. Not everyone should be an accountant. That would be an oversupply, right? If people have different skills, but the people who pick what they want and stick with it and perfect it are going to be better than the one who's 40 who says, oh, I'm still a kid and I don't know what I want to do with my life, right? I have a cousin who's an HVAC tech, right? He didn't go to college, he has no debt, and he's perfecting it, and he's much more successful at a much younger age than the average American. Now, there's an argument. I'll probably be making more when I'm 50 than he does when he's 50, but it's still a viable thing to do. Agent 2 will be willing to open up to cooperation if you do these things in your youth, and if Agent 1 does not do these things, you're going to have a rough adulthood. And if you spend your 20s all the way to your 40s perfecting your career, obeying those rules, right, you're gonna be in your older years wealthy. I'm not saying you're gonna be crazy rich when you're 25. That's really hard to do. Most people don't have that. But if you make lots of small and responsible choices, you could call it boring, but you're probably better off. And if you create this, because in game theory, if you cooperate with others, in society, you gain a reputation. And if you have a reputation of being somebody who is dependable, you're going to be employed, and you're going to be paid well. And if you're not, you can change jobs to some other company that will see you as dependable, and they will pay you well. Your friends, your family, your spouse, they will want to stay with you because you are dependable. And this has a lot to do with the choices in your early adulthood, which will mean that when you're older, you are better off. If you can understand and see yourself in the shoes of a potential employer and use your empathy to put yourself in their shoes, you look at an employer who's looking to hire an employee, you'll be able to see what sort of person you, if you were them, would want to hire. You won't want to hire someone with a face tattoo of a gang, right? Somebody with a swastika tattooed on their face is less likely to get an accounting job than someone without it. Someone with MS-13 tattooed on their neck, probably not, right? You won't want to hire somebody who dropped out of 7th grade and blames the system for it. You won't want someone who will not show up every day, and so on. The ability to put yourself in the shoes of Agent 2 and imagine I'm in the game theory, what would I want to see from Agent 1? Right? And if you can successfully and honestly do that, you're going to do better here. There are many people who hear what I say, right? I've said this to people in real life. They've responded to me, and occasionally I'll say, you got to imagine you're the employer and imagine, well, what do they want from you? What do they want to hear from you? And they won't really be able to put themselves in their shoes. They'll say, they imagine themselves as the employers, and they'll say, if I was the boss, I would hire me even though I blah, 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 and I need to smoke pot every day, blah, blah, blah. This person's not being honest with themselves. They're just jumping to the desired conclusion because they're still imagining themselves in Agent 1 themselves' head. It's like they don't have the theory of mind of Agent 2. They don't even... It's just, I want, I need, so you'll give, right? They aren't really past that stage, and this person's never going to be a boss because of this mentality, and they're just jumping to the desired conclusion. These sort of people will never hire someone else, and deep down I think they know that's true. So my final point about age and inequality is to say that inequality is not necessarily a bad thing. It can be, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. I want people to have food and a place to sleep, but I should not have the same wealth and income when I'm 65 with a 40-plus year career behind me and about to retire as I had when I was 14 working a minimum wage job. This seems obvious to me, but the amount of leftists who do that obnoxious gasp and suck all the air out of the room like I'm evil for even suggesting this makes me think that it's not obvious to people. This is a good quote-unquote system as it motivates young adults 18 to 29 to make decisions that will lead them to be able to provide for themselves, their families, and have the extra income in their older years to give to their families, their church, and their charities of choice. And this should motivate you in your youth to know that if you make these responsible choices, you'll have money in your older ages. And when you absolutely insist, as left-wingers do, first of all, to ignore all the other races except for white and black people, and pretend like those are the only two, and then just say, well, this is how much wealth and income they have on average, and it's like, well, could you find a way to point out, well, black people are a lot younger on average, and this might have an effect. This might have a massive effect. It's never talked about in this discussion. And it should be, because it's a benign, boring, and pretty easy to understand, in my opinion, reason for a lot of this data. The real anomaly is not white people. The real anomaly is Asian people in America. They are 39 on average. They're younger than Jewish and white Americans. They make more money than white Americans, and they have more wealth than everyone else. Weird, considering how young they are. If anyone's inherently privileged, maybe it's them. I am the Mobius strip. My dream is a high-trust society. I want to live in one, and I want you to as well. My videos will show current and historical events in the lens of game theory and second-order effects. Come join me and let me know how much you disagree in the comments below. If you have a full-blown argument with someone in my comments section, that will have the second-order effect of the algorithm sending my video to more people. Follow me on X and look at my posts and my many, many comments posted when I am sitting on the toilet at work. Stay safe, find cooperative folks, work hard, play, pray, and relax. I'll see you later.